An ex-American president discussing nuclear submarine secrets with a businessman at Mar-a-Lago is where we, in surreal fashion, begin the broadcast today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. ABC News chief Washington correspondent and the author of the upcoming brand new book, Tired of Winning, Donald Trump and the End of the Grand Old Party, Jon Karl, is with us. Also joining us, former FBI counterintelligence agent Pete Strzok. With me at the table for the hour, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissmann, a former top official with the Justice Department. Jon Karl, this would be, you know, the proverbial pick your cliche, dumped in the shredder if you pitched it as a Netflix show, tossed out if it were the plot line of your first novel by an agent who said this would never happen. Just take me through, one, what ABC reports, and two, what in your assessment is the most significant piece of this?
Well, it's significant. This is part of the documents investigation. And this story, as far as we know, has nothing to do with an actual document. It gets to what is really at the heart of that case, which is what you just spoke about, and that is how Trump treated our nation's most sensitive military secrets. And it's hard to imagine secrets more sensitive than the capabilities of our nuclear arsenal. What we know, Jack Smith has spoken to this Australian billionaire on 2 occasions, and that he has described how Trump explained to him the details, at least what he purported to be the details, on the capabilities of our nuclear subs, including that particularly sensitive piece of information, which is how close an American nuclear sub can get to a Russian sub without being detected. And what's remarkable to me, besides Trump boasting and wanting to impress this Australian billionaire with this tale, is that in our reporting, as soon as that meeting is over, I mean, literally minutes after the meeting is over, Pratt is overheard telling others at Mar-a-Lago what Trump had just told him. Now, I think this is an underappreciated part of the story. That means that the special counsel is talking to a Mar-a-Lago employee who not only is detailing what they witnessed, but also in our reporting told the special counsel that he was disturbed by the fact that this information had been shared and was now suddenly being talked about right there, presumably on the patio at Mar-a-Lago. So again, this is nothing about documents. There's no suggestion that he was waving around a document, but clearly the special counsel's prosecutors saw this as significant and directly related to their case about Trump's handling of our secrets, not just our documents, but America's most sensitive secrets.
I mean, Jon Karl, well, let me first ask you this. Are you able to answer whether or not any submarines or personnel were endangered by Trump sharing this information?
Honestly, no. I mean, one thing that's clear is we don't know if this information that Trump was relaying was accurate, but we do know that it so concerned the special counsel that when they spoke to Anthony Pratt, they asked him not to repeat the information. Now, that was a little late. He had already, as you detailed, shared it with some 45 people, including 3 former Australian prime ministers. So we don't know. We don't know, but clearly it was highly sensitive information, and it was widely disseminated. And by the way, Pratt is somebody who became a member at Mar-a-Lago only after Donald Trump became president, and clearly used that membership to good effect. I mean, we saw, he obviously went to a state dinner at the White House. Trump came and did an event at a new factory that his company was opening in Ohio. We don't know that this got into the wrong hands, but it certainly got into a lot of foreign hands, specifically Australian hands.
Well, I mean, I think you're getting at a question that's loomed over what we know about the Mar-a-Lago documents case since the beginning, and I understand from smart investigators and lawyers that it's not central to prove motive, but there's always been a big question. What was his motive for keeping this stuff? It seems that your reporting offers a pretty good theory. Business.
Yeah, I mean, and the question here was he just trying to, make himself seem like a big shot? Here I'm the former president, I can tell you the most secret stuff, lean in. I'm going to tell you exactly what our nuclear subs do. What did he want out of Pratt? Who knows? It doesn't really necessarily matter what his motive was. What the special counsel has uncovered here is that the information was disseminated pretty widely. We know the 45 people that Pratt either spoke to about it or emailed about it, which also, by the way, suggests that the special counsel had also got a hold of Pratt's emails. But I mean, who did those people tell about it? I mean, obviously you have a chain effect. The stuff is now out there.
So is Pratt, John Karl, a witness against Trump in the trial?
Well, we don't know yet. He has, as I mentioned, he's spoken to investigators twice, at least twice. I would think that it's highly likely that he would be a witness in this trial. It seems that this was a piece of information, a string of great interest to the special counsel.
John, let me put you on the spot. I mean, I remember the day. I remember where I was when National Security Council staff started calling me after Trump was in the Oval with Lavrov, and what they were backgrounding me or telling me or trying to reassure the press was that they hadn't given him everything, that he'd only compromised a portion of the known intel because they hadn't armed him with everything ahead of Lavrov. To me, that proves knowledge of the recklessness with which Trump handled classified information. And there's always been this sort of sham excuse structure over it. Well, he can declassify anything. He didn't. I mean, what he gave Lavrov was still classified. And they go through the declassification after. I mean, if the special counsel were to want to establish a years-long pattern of Trump disclosing state secrets at a point where he either wasn't supposed to or it wasn't the plan or it hadn't been declassified in a manner to protect U.S. sources and methods and U.S. allies' sources and methods, the litany of witnesses is 10 pages long. Is that underway?
I mean, it seems that they are focused, from everything I have seen, on the post-presidency period. But clearly, and by the way, your conversation also illustrates another fact, which is early on at the time of that Oval Office meeting with Lavrov and with Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, and those incredible photos, by the way, of that meeting, which were released by the Russians, because the Russians had their photographer on board, and there was no American press in there, of course, or anything like that. That was at a time when Trump had some pretty serious people that he had put in place, in terms of running our intelligence agencies. By the time you got to year 4, Rick Grenell was the acting director of national intelligence. Rick Grenell, essentially simply a political operative / troll for the Trump wing of the Republican Party, suddenly has the single most important position in intelligence. That's not somebody that's holding anything back from the president out of fear it's going to be disseminated. Kash Patel, of course, having a very high position at the National Security Council at that point, and then later as the chief of staff to the Secretary of Defense. It became a very different Trump White House by the end. But I think that there is another thing that you get at here, Nicole, which is the documents are one thing, but Trump was privy to information that was, as he's the president of the United States, by definition, he had access to the most sensitive secrets. One thing, I'll give you another little sneak preview on the book. When Donald Trump came to Washington for his inauguration in 2017, the day before he was sworn in, he was briefed, something that's never been disclosed before, but he was briefed on the nuclear football, which of course is something that would always be with him, but how it works, what the operation is. And I'm told he took great interest. Trump was not one that really liked to be briefed about much of anything. But on this, I'm told he took great interest in everything he could find out about the nuclear football, how it works. That's, of course, the thing that goes with the president so that you can, launch a nuclear attack in an emergency. He took that knowledge with him. He may or may not have had documents related to any of that, but that is knowledge that he took with him when he left the White House.
John Carlin had two of his favorite words in it, right? Nuclear and football.
Yes.
What else can you tell us about his keen interest in his briefing about the nuclear football? Because it makes, again, some of the excuses that Trump's conduct, and I'm thinking about his menacing tweets about Kim Jong-un, he doesn't know what he's doing. It sounds like he knew exactly what he was capable of if he paid close attention, rapt attention to the briefing on the nuclear football.
Yeah, I think it is the one area that Trump was keenly focused on from the start. It's something about it that captured his imagination, and he often spoke about his uncle at MIT, nuclear physicist, and he would lecture his own top military advisors and tell them, "I know more about nuclear than you do. I know more about nuclear than anybody." There's another scene that I've described in a previous book of Trump getting a briefing from his Pentagon leadership about the Pentagon budget, and he just gets off on a tangent about nukes, and at one point starts yelling at this point. I think Dunford was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Mattis was the Secretary of Defense. And he's yelling at them, saying, "I know more about nuclear than you do. I know more than you do." And you know what? It is one thing he really did pay attention to, not just that first briefing on the nuclear football, but he had a fascination about that, which may explain in part why he brought those documents to Mar-a-Lago.